Hello, hello. We're gonna get this started, folks. Hi, everybody. I am Danny Terrell. I am here right now in this world having this conversation with folks. This is when I move, you move the conversation. What brought about this conversation is that I just wanted to have conversations with artists from the Northwest, particularly Black and Brown artists, because within the national conversations, our voices are not being in those conversations. And we have a very beautiful experience here in the Northwest. We have a very particular experience here in the Northwest being Black and Brown artists working inside of the structures that we're working on. And also, welcome everybody. I must say that this is hosted by the congregation. None of the panelists are members or parts of the congregation. They are just people that I adore, that I love, and they just said yes to being a part of this conversation. So we are going to start first with the land acknowledgement because we have to acknowledge the land that we're on and the people that allowed us to be here on stolen land. And who's going to help us out with that? Naomi's going to start off with the land acknowledgement. Here you go, Naomi.
Hey, everyone. We gather together today to acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples and shared waters of all tribes and bands named and unnamed, including the Squamish, Duwamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We are grateful to be guests in these lands and commit to solidarity in struggle for Indigenous sovereignty. We pay respects to elders past and present. The land acknowledgement reminds us of our connections and indebtedness to the people's original place name and all our more than human kin where we live and work. Saying their names and learning their histories calls their spirits to life.
Thank you, Naomi. So what we are going to do next, folks, we're going to start introducing our panelists to you. I am going to move myself out of the way, and then I will come back with some further instructions. So, panelists, here we go.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is David Rue. I call myself a dance artist and creative professional. I've worked with Danny Terrell for Black Boys, amongst a few other things, and I also do public engagement at Seattle Art Museum.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Morgan. I'm currently a ballet dancer at the Pacific Northwest Ballet. I'm originally from Tacoma, Washington, and I've been in the company for 4 years. And I'm also a choreographer.
Hi, folks. I am Ron Gatsby, artistic director and lead choreographer for the Purplelemonade, as well as just a commercial dancer in general.
Hey folks, I'm Naomi Makalalet-Bregan. I'm a dance artist, a performer, and a writer. And my work job is as professor at the University of Washington on the Bothell campus.
Hi, my name is MarcoFarroni.
Markeith Wiley.
You could go. Okay, I'll go. Again.
Oh, hey, I'm Markeith Wiley, performing artist, choreographer. In the city, I'm from Long Beach, California. I'm also an art educator, and yeah.
Hi, my name is MarcoFarroni. I am a dance artist from the Dominican Republic, via New Jersey, via Philly, now in Seattle. Yeah.
Amazing. Hi, my name is Randy Ford. I am a Seattle-born artist, educator, a whole bunch of other things, director, co-producer, all the things. I'm a creative, and I'm happy to be here. I'm also running tech, so it's me.
All right, thank you all for doing this so much. No, that first part was not choreographed. I was just like, just go in. Like, y'all will work it out. Y'all will,
we gonna work it out.
We're not structured. We just was like, just let it go. If you all have not done this before, and I'm talking to the viewers, you can make comments on YouTube and Facebook, and we will show your comments. If you have questions, if you have things to say, please make sure that you chime in. We can definitely make sure that that happens. So I think I just want to jump into it because I don't want to take folks a lot of time. For those of you that are non-Black and brown folks, just listen. Let me just start there. Your feelings may get hurt. You may be tuning in to find out if we are directly directing something at you. And if you feel that way, it probably is directed towards you. This is no way in people trying to be shady, but what I'm realizing is that when Black and brown people talk, we are not heard until something like this happens. Now that we're in a pandemic, now that people have time to actually sit down and listen, people are wanting to make changes that we have been talking about for years and years and years. So now this is your time to just listen. If you hear Black and brown people talking, especially femmes, women, trans women, then you just need to listen. So take this as your opportunity to listen to what's happening and listen to these artists. These artists come from the world of hip hop, contemporary modern dance, to ballet, to everything in between. This is not the only conversation that can happen in the city of Seattle, but this is a conversation that's happening. None of us are experts in these conversations. We are just people with very strong opinions that we care about making sure that our art, our voices are being heard. If you know me, I love Black folks, and anytime that I can get Black folks together to talk about what's going on, that is the most important thing to me. If Black people are free, then everybody else will be free. When you see Black folks fighting for change inside of these organizations, it is not just about Blackness, it is about change for everybody. So take this as an opportunity to understand that when we talk about these systematic changes, this is not just for Black bodies, this is for everybody that will walk through those doors. So with that being said, I'm going to start off with the first question. I'm gonna dip out. We are in our third month of COVID-19. We're in our third month of quarantine. How is this impacting your artistic practice? Let's start with Randy, then Marco, Markeith, and Ron, and then Naomi, and I'm dipping out.
Okay. Well, can everyone hear me? Great. Okay, so before COVID-19, I was primarily a dance educator. And so with the influx of everything going virtual, you know, everyone wanting a virtual class, a virtual live, whatever, I just, you know, that was starting to become very overwhelming for me. And especially when people, you know, want to continue to pay you what they would if you were in a studio versus all the planning you're doing to record and like set up and shit and all that stuff. So I was like, I don't want to be slaving around doing lives for the same pay that y'all are trying to give me. Like, this needs to be tripled. And so I've actually been resigning out of a lot of my teaching gigs and like finishing my mentoring and stuff so that I can do my artistic practice full time and do more advocacy work, because that's kind of where my brain is kind of gearing towards right now. It's like, how can I, use this time, use my art, my platform, my whatever, to actually do something and not be contributing to the performativity of everything that's happening right now. So yeah, I'm right here trying to do it all full time. Like literally as we speak, I just was on a phone with an arts organization. I'm just like, I'm not gonna be returning for summer because I'm gonna be doing my own shit. So that's kind of how COVID, kind of beautifully is pushing me to do my artistic stuff and get my stuff out there and collaborate and stuff like that. So we'll see. It's still up in the air.
Yeah, I think, thank you for kind of setting the ground, Randy. I feel similarly, like pre-COVID, I was doing marketing related jobs and dancing, kind of, sort of. But then actually after COVID, I was like, what am I fucking doing? Like, I need to refocus. I need to channel all the energies, channel all the skills that I've gathered and invested on myself and my peers, and kind of reaching across versus trying to climb this bullshit called capitalism, and that manifests itself in so many ways. So now I'm doing exactly that. I'm kind of, what does it mean for me to be an artist today? In understanding that everything that I kind of trained for is upside down, and because it's upside down, maybe I need to be upside down too. Maybe this is something that is like oh, we're gonna do it from here today, and that's exciting, and also like yeah.
I think for me, it's impacted my practice in the way of I'm not practicing. I'm not doing anything. And it is a conscious choice not to do anything. For those who know me, they know like I'm always one of those people. I want to go to the next project and the next thing and work and work and work. And that leads to so much burnout. When COVID kind of happened, it actually came at a really good time. I was rehabbing a really bad knee injury, and it almost felt like the universe was like, girl, you don't have to do, like, sit down, rehab, let other people do. And, you know, I'm just not practicing right now. I don't feel like I have much to say in terms of my spirit isn't there to create, and I don't want to create something if my spirit isn't there to create it. And like my other hat when I'm not dancing is I work in tech. So I've usually, or what I've been doing is just trying to figure out how to help other teaching artists get the resources that they need, kind of to like Randy's point of, it's a lot of work to try to have a streaming class. You just don't throw up, you know, an IG or a YouTube. It's a lot to actually make it happen. So I've been just kind of figuring out how I can support other artists in that way. And that's kind of where I've been in this whole pandemic situation.
Yeah, I think for me, similarly, I mean, even prior to COVID, I was starting to kind of think about how can I reimagine what's possible for me. And I'm during this time outside of my dance practice, really thinking about the kind of craft and the artistry of the world of arts administration and arts leadership, because even when the museum opens, the idea of a big public program where thousands of people go to is not going to be something that's going to happen anytime soon. So it's really given me the opportunity to kind of reassess what my role is as an arts practitioner and really reimagine what's possible using what I had before to make something better for tomorrow. So I've been doing a lot of dreaming and planning strategically, I guess.
I was about to produce a whole lot of shows before COVID hit, going from like March all the way to November, and was really ready and excited and to like share with the folks, with the people. And then everything closed down, and it kind of felt like realizing like, oh, this can happen at any given time, you know, like, and so like mourned it really fast, and then just started to go into research mode for myself, watching the people, watching the world, seeing how different places respond to being quarantined, like this whole worldwide phenomenon. Lots of reading, just like self-care, self-reflection, mostly, yeah, and that feels great. I'm also still teaching. The studio I work at jumped on like the Zoom classes immediately, and you know, it never got better. We got to a place where it just like worked, and we saw like a dropout rate happen with most classes. Yeah, just living life.
Yeah, I think for me, right before this COVID-19 pandemic happened, I was really feeling like I wasn't able to grow as an artist. I'm, you know, in a classical ballet company, and that is probably the most limiting to me, at least in all of the art forms. I feel like ballet is so Eurocentric and it's based on really following orders. So, and then on top of that, being a core member with a core of mostly white women is just trying to fit into that mold. I mean, that was just, it doesn't, it's not going to happen for me. I'm not going to fit into that quote unquote mold. So I was very unhappy, and I was trying to find ways to, you know, expand within myself and also in the world, like with my voice. And I wasn't able to do that in my own organization. So I really was choreographing and trying to reach out to people in the community. And so once this pandemic happened, I kind of kept with that and reached out to people within the community, not with necessarily within PNB, but outside of PNB, either in Spectrum or, you know, in this forum here. And it's been really great because I've really realized, you know, what brings me joy as an artist and what kind of work I want to make and what I, you know, how I want to use my gifts to reflect upon in the world. So, yeah.
You know, it's been interesting. It feels kind of like I've just been amplifying what I've been doing all along, which has been kind of like a lot of reflection and a lot of healing work. And it just has taken on another level of urgency and deepness, the necessity to really be always in this practice of healing, and especially to be in this practice of learning to be in touch with my intimacy. You know, it's something that I was already feeling before all of this began to happen, was like, what is my intimate connection with myself and how can I be more vulnerable? How can I really be in touch with that soft spot? And this is just re-ascertained that it's emphasized that. But I would like to say one other thing, which is that I feel like what a lot of folks have just spoken to is like the need to work within constraints and limitations. And I feel like that's the history of Blackness, you know? And so it really feels so important to the core of this conversation, this question that we have like started out with, is really that this has always been about working within constraints and experimenting, a radical experiment, you know.
Thank you all so much. As you all can see, we are posting their Cash App handles and Venmo handles. Y'all know what that means. Just do it. I ain't got to go over that. These artists work very hard in what they do, so drop them some coins, okay? Drop them some coins for this conversation because this is also like a master class. So what we're going to do, we're going to move into 3 different areas of this conversation. I want to start with David Rue and the lovely yet direct Facebook post. I know there have been a lot of art organizations that have reached out to artists as soon as COVID hit and was like, what do we do? How can we make this happen? And artists did not have the time to sit in the fact that we are in a pandemic and my life has completely changed. There was insensitivity happening. And also on top of that, then we were hit yet again with the killings of Black bodies. The torture of Black bodies, trans bodies, male bodies, cis bodies, queer bodies, and arts organizations were called to task by David Rue locally and several other people. My question is, and this can go in any direction, but what will be your relationship with art organizations now? Because the other thing that I'm seeing that's happening is that artists are producing work without the financial support of art institutions. People are figuring it out. And I always go back to the kids that are on social media, the youth, that they have made millions of dollars just with an iPhone or some type of Android phone. So what does this mean for yourself going back and having conversations with art organizations as artists, art practitioners? So I'm gonna leave it there and we can open that up to whoever. But David, why don't you start first? Because your post was getting a lot of traction.
Sure. And it's funny, I was just kind of free-forming my mind. But you know, the biggest thing for me is that for all of the organizations that I talked about, whether it's Velocity Dance Center, On the Boards, whoever, it was such an insult and a slap in the face of the intelligence of all of these artists locally that you say that you supported, and then when it's time to actually show that and talk about it, you're silent. And it was like so strange to me that these people, a lot of which I know personally, would have to wait for like their marketing coordinator or their PR person to develop language, because that should have come out pretty naturally and organically. So I thought that, and also the other thing that I'm thinking about is when you think about all of the racial equity work that the city has provided, like the Office of Arts and Culture, they have the template that exists, and it just blew my mind. It felt like they were failing an open book test. I say that all the time. It's like you had the notes, and you're not using it, and you can't be mad at other people for realizing that and asking you to take action and calling you out for doing it far too late. And then to answer the other part of your question, I think that what institutions and organizations need to realize, at least from my perspective, especially as somebody that works at a large one, is that we don't need you. You actually need us to succeed moving forward outside of this COVIDian era. And the patience is already barely there. So think critically about how you are doing things and realize that, again, I said on that one of those Facebook posts, like, we are all artists, and we can tell when you're putting on a show, and we can tell when you're putting it on, and we can tell when the work isn't being done authentically. And if you don't find ways to do that authentically, then please don't come crying to anybody when you're left behind empty without anybody wanting to engage with you, because who in their right mind would want to engage with an organization that behaves like that? So that's kind of me and what I'd said. And again, it's of course nothing personal. This is like, if you care about the art and you care about the work, then we should all be doing the work, and we should all be doing the work with excellence, because I think I take the art sector so seriously, and I hate hearing people within the art say the art should be taken seriously by other people, and then inside you're not taking it seriously yourself. So if you want to be about it, then be about it. And if you don't, then let's get it crunk.
Absolutely. As to piggyback off of that, a lot of my work along with educating was working as a teaching artist with a bunch of nonprofits, and just realizing that a lot of the nonprofits here in Seattle are just protecting each other from all of the shit that's happening. They're not saying anything, they're not speaking up. There's so many things like as far as like employment disputes that are reoccurring, and we all know the arts core thing situation that happened, and it's nothing seems to be progressing. And so I'm over arts organizations doing the same kind of lip service that they kind of tend to do. Is oh yeah, we'll pay you all this money, that you won't see, because we'll actually be getting the rest of the money while you do all of the work. And I'm just not interested in that dynamic. And so for a lot of the institutions, they're gonna have to realize that from moving forward now on, like David said, y'all need us. So I'm going to be charging y'all as if you really need me, and tripling everything, because again, we've been doing this work, we've been, cultivating the youth, putting into the community. And I think just for the utter disrespect, that the silence, there's so much that silence is it speaks wonders. Silence is so loud to me, in just relation to all of everything that's happening, especially with everything happening with the movement and everything. So it's just, the silence was very telling. I was sad to say that I wasn't surprised. And, I'm interested to see how the energy is maintained, if at all. I definitely feel like the energy is kind of not going to be the same, and it's already trickling down, as we're reopening. And so I hope they know that, once they reopen, we're going to be very, very, very select and reserved. So.
Yeah, I want to echo everything that David and Randy are saying. And also I want to add a quote. I read this from Sarah Ahmed. She did an essay titled "Institutional as Usual," and it feels fitting. And I quote, "Creating evidence of doing something is not the same as doing something." The frustration and the calling out and the things that we see with what David is doing on the social channels, it's why are we even having to do it? That's the frustration and the irritation, where now not only are we giving you the answers, but you're still failing the test. How do we shift away from from these people that run these organizations, because we sometimes talk about institutions as if it's not humans behind it. Like, we have to hold accountable those people that are in leadership roles. We have to hold accountable, and actually, let's fuck all that shit. Let's completely destroy that shit. Who is to say that instead of having an artistic director or an executive director, what if we have a collective of people that are in those positions, that are actually putting the work, and they're not being kind of stretched out to the maximum to cater to this evolving thing that is the arts sector anywhere. So we have to hold these people behind these institutions accountable. Always. Always, always, always.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to go off of what everyone is saying, particularly with the ballet company, I was really, really upset because they use my face. They use, Black and brown students all the time to promote diversity, showing that they are diverse. But then when, Black bodies are literally murdered, there's absolute silence. And I was like, it's not just about how that feels to me and all of the work that I'm putting towards it, that, you're basically telling me my life doesn't matter. But for all of these children that, feel like they need support, and, P&B is a place where they go to, express themselves and find love in dance. And for you to tell, not say anything, like I just immediately thought of all of the dance champ kids and the Discover Dance kids and all these kids that they bring in to promote diversity and use, so that was something that really, really upset me. And so I guess 2 days after, the news came out about George Floyd, I was like, I need to talk with Ellen, our, executive director, and Peter Bull, our artistic director, and I need to get on a call with them. Like, I want a Zoom call with them, and I basically just, kind of yelled at them, to be honest, because, if it was, and the thing that really upset me too is because if I didn't say anything, no one else would have done anything about it. Maybe they would have put out a statement eventually, but it was up to me, being the only, Black woman in that company, to have to do that. So I know going forward, once we are going back, at least in my ballet company, I'm not going to remain silent about anything. I'm going to continuously hold, my director and my executive director and everyone behind the scenes accountable. And also, my coworkers as well. So yeah.
Thank you all. Did anybody else want to chime in? If not, we can move on to the next thing. All right, y'all. So we have seen the beautiful solidarity statements, and I am really being sarcastic when I say that, because honestly, it's been a very generic theme that I've literally seen every arts organization compile the same statement of solidarity. Are those statements to be trusted? Because we know for years, yes, I'm gonna let you, yes. I just wanted this last statement. We know for years, like the organizations, especially the ones that I've been working with in Seattle, have talked about, how they stand for Black lives and how they want to do better. And we actually have not seen it in the work. We've seen these very shallow attempts to promote Black folks. And I know some of these people are like, aren't we doing enough? But then we look at the foundational and structural change. And so when you put out this statement, after being called out, what does it mean? And Ron, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't trust it before, and I don't trust it now. And that's how I really feel. It's been very interesting to see a lot of these statements come out, and they usually all start with, "We see you and we stand with you." I feel like automatically when I saw those two sentences, I know, womp. But it's been really strange to see. And the reason why I say I didn't trust it before and I don't trust it now is because the conversations that a lot of people who are putting out these statements, the conversations that they're rallying behind now are really conversations that we were having 2 or 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it's really strange to me that now you get it at a time where not getting it puts you in a space to where people are looking at you sideways. It's like, how are you just now getting the thing that I've been talking to you about it? So it's very, it makes me look at everything and all statements kind of like with I just look at them sideways because I don't believe it. You know, I haven't seen it in past, and I really don't think, even as we're starting to see people's feeds return to normal and such, I don't see continued work, and I don't see anything that makes me feel that those statements or support are weighted in anything that's real. And
yeah, I agree. For me, it's so much more than a statement. At this point, we saw how you behaved, and it was what it was. But at this point, moving forward, it's like, what are you doing to address internal hiring practices? What does your season look like? What is the casting looking like? Can you address the fact that there's one Black dancer in a company of how many people? Can you address the fact that you program a season of performance, 2 of which are people of color, and you think that you deserve a pat on the back? Can you address how you are dealing with unpaid internships? And like, let us know publicly, like, drop the Excel sheet and let us know where the money's going so that we can see it, so that we can see that you're doing the work. If not, these statements are a waste of people's time. We know that you did it because you got called out because you didn't do it. And even had you done it, it came so late that it was kind of useless. So just drop the files and let us know what the next steps are strategically inside your organization, and that'd be great.
Ashe.
You
would think.
Go ahead, Randy. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, you go, please.
Maybe this is because it's not even them. It's usually the marketing managers that are writing these statements, or the social media coordinators that are having to do this labor too. So it's it's like, not only is the statement not genuine, it's also not from any place that is going to be actually shifting things around, like internally, structurally, as you say, David.
And just like, stop also coming to the people you're oppressing for the answers that you're causing. Like, I really don't understand why you expect me to have the absolute 100% solution to my oppression that you're causing. Like, I don't understand it. And it really makes me upset that, Amanda, you feel you have to be the one person that's holding them accountable. It should be them and their friends holding themselves accountable. I need you and these white orgs to get in y'all little virtual rooms and talk amongst each other about the shit that y'all are doing, and then come to us now that you've talked about it, and then we can maybe tell you that, oh, okay, maybe, and then go back. Like, stop asking us for the blueprint. We don't have it. You created this monster. You fix it and you kill it.
And to that point, Randy, it's like, if you come to me with questions and you don't come to me with anything actionable that you want to do, you're being mad lazy, because what it tells me is that you haven't had the conversations with your people. You don't even have anything to bring to this conversation that you're asking me questions about. So where's the logic there? Like, I don't have time or the energy. I'm sorry, I know somebody was going, but yeah. Ooh.
The thing is, like, these systems are not failing. They're not broken. These systems are functioning the way they were built to function. And we just have to keep that shit in mind. And the other part of it is that what I don't want is for a representative who supposedly represents me, whether they be a queer, trans, BIPOC, QT BIPOC person, who comes in and upholds whiteness and continues to uphold the system, because we know that also happens, and I feel like that's also a level of the conversation that we have to be really, really urgently aware of at this point. We have to really have our finger on the pulse of that. this the idea that representation is always we're just going to be able to shift the pieces on the chessboard, and that's going to be fine. That's enough, and so, yeah, like as Marco was saying, it's about like just throwing all the chessboard over and really also recognizing the resources that we have in Blackness, that Blackness actually gives us those resources. And we can draw on those and we can celebrate those actually, because we celebrate them all the time when we dance, and those resources are here for us. So let's begin to imagine in this world now using those resources rather than relying on them, because they're just going to keep doing what they're doing.
Marquis?
Oh yeah, it's interesting. They showed their whole asses when COVID hit in the first place, right? They were very thirsty. These organizations, they wanted Black and brown folks and queer folks to be producing work at a time where we're all supposed to be taking care of ourselves. And I felt this firsthand and saw it all around, And so for them to turn around, they wanted us to put our bodies on the line in this way. And then when they saw that our bodies were always on the line, to put out statements, it's just not a viable thing. Like, we already knew what they were going to do, I feel like. Yeah, that's all. Love what everyone else is saying.
Yeah, and to, go along all those points too, I'm thinking, if they don't get with the program and change the system, especially ballet companies, like, they're not going to be relevant anymore. Like, if you keep doing white-centered work, white narratives, like, I just feel like it's not going to last. That's at least for me, as a choreographer, as a dancer, seeing, what audience members really are drawn to things. It's like the majority of our audiences are old white people. So, like, unfortunately, they're not going to be around forever. So, they need to think ahead and say, how are we going to stay relevant with all these other forms of art? Because if not, then it's all going to, it's going to just kind of become obsolete, in my opinion.
I want to add one more thing about, thank you, Amanda, for saying that, and specifically narrowing it to ballet companies. It's also like, we have to be critically thinking about the work that is being presented also. Like, we love the Nutcracker. The Nutcracker is fucked up. The Nutcracker is racist. We know this. Yeah, no.
It really is.
Marco, I think you froze for a second. There you are. You're back.
That's them,
Well, it's
but it is true.
New York City Ballet. So, honey, God is talking. It's not going to be happening anymore after this point. I feel like nothing.
Right. Recently, I just saw an article posted that Broadway is shut down until at least January 2021. And that says a lot. We know the numbers of COVID, they're going up. We know artists need a break. We know all of these things are happening. So arts organizations, like, it's really a touch and go thing about what's happening. And how do we keep our art alive, knowing that it may not show up in theaters, it may not show up in these buildings, and also our artistic practice is part of what has been given to us as Black and brown folks for centuries. It's not, I think at times it's not even something necessarily that we learned, we just knew. Like, even if you're not a professional dancer or artist, you grew up in your family dancing if you came from that family within Blackness. Or somebody in your family was singing in a choir, or you learned to sing off key or not. You learn to tell stories through your grandmother. So art is a part of, especially people of color. I'm going to group that into people of color right now. Indigenous folks. It is part of our just everyday life. It's not even a practice. We just walk with art with us. So how do you all keep that alive? And I also wanted to touch on something Naomi said, that when these organizations and people are looking at diversity, I say this all the time, and I will say it again. Whiteness, there's diversity in whiteness. What you need to do is bring people in that will challenge your systems, even if they are white. I don't care that you have a staff of 50 white people. At least 10 of them need to be challenging y'all on some real hardcore levels. If you're bringing in them white folks and they think in the same way that you are thinking, then that is wrong. Just because you throw a brown person in, a black person in, a trans person in, if they still are thinking the same way that you are doing, you are missing the point. So Naomi, thank you for that. I just wanted to yes, Naomi, yes, go ahead on that one.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the way whiteness works is whiteness is about sameness, right? And so we only have this concept of difference because whiteness relies on sameness. The standard is that there's sameness. And so there always has to be this idea of like difference in contrast to that. But the reality is that it's all difference. It's all difference. And whiteness always has to categorize that difference. It has to make it into a formula that can be put onto, it can be put in censuses. It can be put, it can be put into little boxes and into static categories and arranged and accounted for. That's what whiteness does. It accounts for. It accounts for difference and it manages difference. And so, while I understand, I'm in an institution, I'm in the university. Academia is a fucking white ass 400-year longer institution, but even as I'm in that, I have to recognize, like, even if I work on diversity committees, XYZ, I have to understand that diversifying is what whiteness likes to do. Like, capitalism works to diversify, but it's not actually fundamentally radically questioning the system of representation in itself. And what Blackness actually does, or has the potential for, is to completely unsettle those systems. It's to unsettle. So if y'all are, if we aren't feeling unsettled by this work, then we're probably not doing the work. We really have to like radically unsettle these institutions.
Wow. Absolutely. Ashay, give her things, everyone. Her Venmo's right there.
I also just think the theaters are dying. The theater's been dying for a long time as well, so we just got a extra push right now. And most of us, everyone included in this conversation, already have done things that don't need to take place inside or indoors for folks to come and sit down and consume. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that and coming out of this.
And I think that's the bright light at the end of the tunnel, the change that is going to happen. People are grieving this pre-COVID world that didn't work. It didn't work for Black people. It didn't work for intersectional folks of any kind. This is not, like Naomi said, it is precisely created to do this. It is that is the fundamental function of this thing. And I think I agree with Marquise. It's the theater is wherever we put it. It doesn't have to be wherever the shit is at. It doesn't have to be at the Fifth Avenue Theater. It doesn't have to be at the Paramount.
Right.
It's wherever the artists are. Going back to what David said, they do need us, or there's no show, or there is no spectacle, there is none of that. So I think it's kind of demanding and holding your ground to it's a no on that.
Yeah, I'm so obsessed with what Naomi said, this radical unsettling. That's gonna have to be the standard moving forward. Even there's a pandemic happening that people can't even go to Target without a mask on. The world is being radically reimagined, and artists are always at the forefront of that kind of reimagining, and it needs to be done properly. And if it's not being done properly, then get out of the way and let people do it.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Amanda, please.
I was going to say a great part of, the COVID works being done online virtually is that, it's not just a certain type of person that's able to see art now. It's every type of person is able to see art. Every type of person is able to get that exposure and see the beauty in work being made. And I definitely feel that for ballets specifically, but I know that it's just art all over, the course of whatever during this time. But one thing I'm questioning is kind of just like how we're gonna get the same type of income and money going forward to that same type of value of people wanting to pay for art rather than just being able to see it for free. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I think the ballet company is at.
As the wonderful J. Mace III told me, you put your cash handles on everything that you do and you produce. People will show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid of that. I didn't understand the power of that until I started doing it. And as David Rue says, and I quote, I'm going to not accept that, and I'm going to send you a note and say add another zero to it.
Hello. A few zeros.
Praise them.
A few zeros to it. So I think that's really important. I wanted to move into another thing that we come into as Black artists in the different disciplines. I wanted to talk a little bit about appropriation. Ta-da! I want to start with this. We have a large Asian population here in Seattle, a large Asian population that partakes in especially street styles, let me not say urban. Ooh, watch that out. Black social dances, I know, I was like, oh, clutch my chest. Black social dances, especially within what is defined as hip hop culture. I want to ask this question. How does the Asian community reconcile its appropriation of hip hop culture with Black and Latin communities in Seattle and the world? What does that look like? I'm going to remove myself. Naomi, I know you have a lot to say, so I'm going to bring you back in. But whoever else wants to chime in with that, please let me.
Yeah.
Saw you then, or one.
Oh, no, I was going to say, if Miss Naomi is going, I'll go after her. Oh, there we go. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here, and I feel like, where to start? I think the first thing that we need to do, or that as far as it pertains to the Asian community and hip hop or street style, is to check the language that you are using in your classes, in your teaching, in whatever it is. And I need there to be an understanding of, you can't sell me something that comes from my own culture. You cannot sell me something that I do at home. And you cannot grade what it is that I do according to what you have been taught in a classroom, and you come in here and tell me that, oh, it's not clean enough. Or, oh, that's a little too, I was in a class and they told the only Black woman who was in the class that she danced too ratchet. How are you teaching a whole hip hop piece and you're telling the only Black girl in this class that she dances too ratchet? How that work? Okay, so that in and of itself, check your language. How are you communicating with me about the things that comes from me? Okay, that's the first thing. The second bit of it is, y'all know I'm heated about it.
Please.
Please go on.
Because it just doesn't make sense. The second thing is there are some people who get it right within the Asian community. And I'm gonna call her out for it. Tracy Wong right now is, she's somebody who I feel, my personal experience, she gets it right. She makes sure that if she is teaching something, before she even teaches it, she explains where it comes from, how she got to it, that she is teaching this only from a place of, hey, I learned it from here. Yeah. So if you don't know how it is, find the people within your community who are doing it right. And yeah, and you know what? And it might take you a couple of conversations, and it might take you a couple of dialogues with this one and that one, but go to your community and have those conversations and go there and figure it out. Yeah. because especially in Seattle, there are times where I feel like I, as a Black person, can't even come into a hip hop class. You know, like I feel alienated in my own space. I just don't understand how that's working. You know, so I'm done on that one.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, yeah, there's a lot. Actually, Danny, I created like a 7 bullet point list for this question.
Yes.
Because I mean, you're going to ask me to talk about it. And I just want to echo or reflect what Ron just so eloquently summarized, because I feel like I couldn't summarize it better. But you cannot sell me something that comes from my culture. So just going off of that, you know, history lesson, Black folks had to buy their freedom, right? That's like folks under slavery had to buy their freedom. Okay, that's the way that the system works. You know what I'm saying? And then going back farther from that, the idea that people could be captured, people could be enslaved, people could be transported, ripped from their home structures, transported into another world, and then basically made property. That's the history that we have to keep in this conversation. I feel like we don't go far back enough, basically. So this conversation about Black culture, Black cultural production, Black cultural circulation comes from this, okay? The idea that a people could be made Black, right? Now, the other thing that I always like to remind myself of is that it's not just that the body became property. It's that anything that body produced also became property. So that included cotton, that included sugar, that included tobacco, that included babies, that included families, and that included Black culture. Okay, so for example, you know, if the slave master wants you to perform for him, he can get you up in the middle of the night, bring you into his salon, get drunk, and make you play music and make you dance. If he's not happy with the culture you're producing or performing, he can make you stop. So this is the violence under which the beauty of Black culture becomes this kind of like radical experiment, right? This ongoing experiment of Black culture, which is produced, you know, within this system of domination and violence. So the truth of Black culture, and I can actually just give a link because there's a scholar, Nicholas Brady, who actually went through the Black Studies program at UC Irvine and is now a professor, but wrote about the idea of cultural appropriation and why even the term of appropriation is just mischaracterizes the depth of violence which we're talking about. Because appropriation just stays within the language of property. It just stays within the language of, you know, that things can be owned and traded, you know, but the truth is, which I feel like what Ron actually said very succinctly, was that Blackness cannot be owned. It cannot be owned. And so when we experience this kind of violence, the echoes of this afterlife of slavery that happens in the dance studio, right? And it happens in the way people carelessly talk about what it means to participate in hip hop culture. Like that brings up all of this history in these kinds of really, you know, resounding ways that we don't even have always the language or understanding, you know? And so for me, you know, and I also just want to also highlight the clean it up thing, because I talk about that a lot in hip hop, because hip hop is funky, y'all. Right? And the definition of funk is dirtiness. It is not cleanliness. It's not about clean it up. That's what they do on shows like America's Best Dance Crew. And, oh, it's not clean enough. You need to clean it up. You need to clean up your choreo. You know, all of that is actually just anti-Blackness speaking. You know, it's judging, it's an operation, it's the judging operation that thinks that it can take Blackness and it can like regulate it and manage it and clean it up, but it cannot, because it's going to be funky and it will always be funky. It doesn't matter what kind of strategies they have, which they have endless strategies. It doesn't matter. It's just always going to be funky. So they can't take that shit away. That's the first thing I just want to say. Like, is they cannot take that shit away. It doesn't matter like what strategies they come up with. But, you know, as far as then, because I do feel like what we're trying to get to in this conversation is, so what do folks do? And I just had a conversation with some Asian folks on Facebook about this too, who are dancers in the street dance community, you know, and they're like, okay, well, what do I do? And I'm like, first of all, there is no equation and no formula that I can give you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what folks want. They want an easy formula.
Right.
They don't actually have to think, and they don't actually have to care about Black people or Black life. They just need a formula, you know? So there is no formula. You have to live in the question. You need to live in the question every moment, you know, and that's the depth of it. You just have to live in that question, like meditate on that shit, you know, and it's not going to go away. And it, you know, because even whatever I do in this moment, maybe I decide, let me stop teaching my hip hop dance class at the university, you know, but shit, the university could be gone in like 6 months from now, you know, like, so how am I going to give you that formula? You have to be always in that question, you know, and you have to be really, you know, dedicated to that, I would say. The last thing I just want to say, though, about cultural appropriation, because again, like I said, I feel like the term has been used so much, and it really mischaracterizes the actual obliteration of Blackness that's happening in these circumstances. Is that, you know, we have always done cultural sharing. We have always done inhabiting of other people's materials, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's beauty in that. There is, you know, syncretism has always been, I mean, it's like Black folks do syncretism, you know, like all the practices that Black folks do that are about syncretism, you know? And so, you know, like we have to more consider what are the artistic intentions behind these kinds of representations, whether it's a representation of hip hop in the studio or, you know, any kind of cultural form that's on stage. What is the artist's intention behind that, you know? And really get beyond this kind of language of policing, because that's what whiteness wants us to do. It wants us to police each other, you know, and do all that kind of thing. I've talked to colleagues in universities where they say students are afraid to sit in circles because they're afraid they're going to appropriate indigenous practices. It's just like, no, you know, we got to go beyond that and complicate the conversation, deepen it.
And if anyone has questions why I asked Naomi, a non-Black person, to be on this conversation, now you know. Naomi and I have tons of conversations about this, and this is, again, when we uplift people doing the work, this is someone that I truly respect because they are doing the work in a way that they are showing up and they're decentering themselves. Naomi wants people to also know that if you are donating to them, that their money will be going to the Black Lives Matter movement. And again, I thank you, Naomi, because I know these conversations, we have these conversations all the time. And yes, there are people in the city that's doing the work, but I'm gonna be real, they're not doing the work that Naomi does. If you don't know who Naomi is, you know who she is now. And I say that to say that the research that Naomi does is really real. And again, where else can we go? Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Naomi. Yes, this is truly a master class for that. Where do we go from here? I don't want to keep everyone time. You know, I don't want to do all that, but I do want to just go back to this response to Black Lives Matter. After people were being called out on social media, certain dance companies, certain people holding classes in the city, they started donating to Black organizations. And again, I've even heard through some people that are in theater that they were saying that it's like, oh, the theater companies and other artists that were white actors were like, now that we have time, we can really focus on this. The real conversation, real true conversation. Where do we go from here? We know, again, the statements are happening. Someone posted in the comments what's going to happen 6 months from now. For me, it's not just about giving Black and brown bodies money anymore. We're going to accept your money. Don't ever get me wrong. We're going to take the money. But for me, a lot of times that is guilt money and that is hush money, and all money ain't good money. Like, let's be real about that. What do you all see? And Markeith, I want you to kick this off because you've been quiet, and I know you've been quiet. But what do you see happening 6 months from now? What do you want to see happen? If you all could, and I really want everyone to answer this, if you can imagine a different world within the art community, especially with Black folks, what do you imagine and what do you want to see happen?
I mean, I feel it's already been said by other folks, but like a complete dismantling of how art functions in cities and through organizations or lack thereof. I know that's not going to be the case because folks are still grasping at straws. Just grasping at straws is what I see happening right now. So for me personally, just less, I don't know. I need to think about that question a little bit more, actually. I do. Yeah.
One thing that I've been thinking about is just within these institutions actually giving, Black, queer, POC people space to create work, actually giving them the space, a platform to have visibility, in the city. Because, I mean, just having like what, David was saying, having, one Black choreographer in a whole, rep of just, cis white men is not creating space for different types of people and different types of narratives and different types of things to, different types of work to be made and stories to be heard. So that's one thing I'm hoping can happen going forward. Or no, I'm not hoping. I'm demanding that happens going forward. If it doesn't in ballet, I'm done with it. I just, that's the routine. So for me.
No.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
And I'll try to keep it really small. I don't have a better way of explaining it other than I want to see arts organizations stop playing the house nigga failed nigga within the Black community. And what I mean by that is if Randy, if I can use us both as an example, I happen to work with an organization that I knew Randy had previously worked with and had a really, really like weird exchange with them. Rather than that organization coming out and saying, hey, we were wrong and we should have done her better, they come in and hire me and treat me fantastically. Like, look at us. Look at how great we're doing by them. And that has to go for me. And that happens a lot in Seattle. Seattle, I need y'all to pay attention and pay attention real quick. Yes, we all know each other. Yes, we all talk. Okay? Yes, we do. Period. Okay?
Idiot.
So don't try to play my sister and then do me right and then be like, well, look at us. We're doing so great. No, you need to right the wrongs that you did. Say what it is. Stop treating one better than the other because that causes weird energy between us. Now I can't show up for my sister's event or she can't show up for my event with the right spirit because y'all playing us against each other. So my biggest thing is I want that to stop. If you wrong somebody, if you haven't made the right thing, publicly apologize and then go back and make it right before you even decide that you're going to hire another person and try to make it like, look how much we're doing for this person. Because look, I gotta pay my rent, so I'm gonna need to get that money, but I also need you to make it right. That's my big thing.
Absolutely. Just a really quick piggyback off that, I would love to see in the next 6 months a culture that is developed where people who feel like they're unqualified to do the things that they were supposed to be doing step down and give the people who are qualified the positions. As my lovely roommate, David Rue, would say, if you were the person who taught this seminar to college students and therefore you cannot maintain the organization that you are using, then you might have to step down. You just might have to step down and be like, you know what, I am unqualified. I am so sorry. Positions open to the next Black POC, whoever, Black, whatever, like step down. I want to see more of y'all stepping down. Your words don't mean shit unless you step down. We're not going to be repeating this power dynamic between y'all in your $700,000 salaries to my 45. Like, I'm not going to be doing this with you. We're not going to be doing this. So step down. I need to see a culture of people stepping down.
Randy, you took it right out of my mouth. I was just gonna say people need to start yielding their positions. Like in 6 months, if you had a position for the past 30 years or 20 years or 10 years, and you don't know what the fuck is going on January 29th, 2020, you are unqualified, and you've been unqualified for the past 30 years. And I think those people need to also be held accountable and completely remove themselves from the equation because they are unqualified, as Randy says.
Awesome. Thank you all. I want to move it into the final round of questions. Again, these are conversations that we've been having. These are conversations that we will continue to have. And we, again, just scratched the surface of these conversations. I want to bring it back to us. I want to bring it back to how do we show up for each other? As Ron said, we actually do show up for each other. I was in a conversation and one artist, Black artist, did not feel like community was showing up for them. And that really struck me, and realizing that this person is hurt, and how do we in this city, because we are such a small city, in a sense, a small town, and a lot of us know each other and a lot of us have worked with each other. But for those that we may not go out and see, how do we make a community that's stronger in our support for all of us? What does that look like? How do we imagine that? David, go.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think that beyond the ways of like if they're doing a show, you go to it, or if you have the opportunity to commission people, you commission people that are doing work in the community. One of the things that comes to my mind, how we can show up for one another, is showing up, or how do I say this? Meeting people where they're at and being okay with where they're at in wherever part of their life that they are. So if you're in a place where you don't feel comfortable leaving your house, I'm not going to take it personally if I'm doing something and you don't show up. Like that sort of thing, and without any kind of judgments, without any kind of just being able to, like, I feel like that's another part of the things that I said before that I think we've been trying our best to do as much as possible naturally and organically, but also just being understanding of like, I get it if this is too much for you, and that's fine. And I'm not going to feel any type of way about it. And I'm still going to send you love, and nothing about our relationship changes is something that's coming to my mind right off the bat.
You know, one thing I think that we can do, and it's not a secret anymore because I'm about to tell y'all, but I buy secret tickets to people's stuff all the time. You know, I might not be able to go to do everything. I might not be able to show up because y'all know I'll be busy than a jailhouse hooker. But I try to buy tickets, and, you know, because support is, I think a lot of times support within the Black community, we think, you know, hey, I want to support you. Do you got any comps left? You know, that's not support. Like, I'm legit trying to pay my rent right now. do this production. So buy a secret ticket. If you can't go to the event, if you can't take the class, but if it's within your means to do, figure out a way that you can show up monetarily, for others in our community. If you cannot show up monetarily, it costs you nothing to hit that share button. Sometimes I only go to something if I've seen one of y'all share it, because then I know, okay, this is on the up and up. This is on, it's some Black people behind this, because truth be told, there are a lot of events that are marketed to the Black community where it's no Black people involved other than the folks that's on the stage, and they probably get in the smallest amount of whatever that pie is. So, share, support, be vocal about your support, and be vocal, if you do have the means to do it, show up that way, buy a ticket and give it to somebody else who, maybe isn't able to go. And I think that's the way that we can show up for each other.
I also want to make sure that don't wait until it's the day of the show to buy a ticket, or you should be supporting these artists in the process. Like, capitalism tells us to create, generate. We need objects, we need things. It's we have to kind of shift our perspective on dance or art making and facilitating in where we support artists when they need it most, which is throughout the process. Pre-COVID, you needed to rent space, you needed to pay your dancers, you needed to collaborate with musicians. There's a lot of variables that people do not consider, and then they ask for a $20 ticket to be comped when you're investing in your art. And I think that's what we need to do more of. We need to invest in the artists personally, and they do whatever the fuck they want with the money.
I want to add to that for a second and just say that again, a lot of us hold different positions within the arts world here in Seattle. And we also need to think about using our positions and our platforms to also help uplift other folks too. And again, not to say that we don't, but that has become really important to me. And sometimes I feel really weird about it because I'm not trying to censor myself, but you do censor yourself. Like, I'm just gonna call it and just own what it is. But also, we know that we have different ways to lift up and to bring in voices. Markeith was doing studio current sessions, and he was purposely bringing in Black artists to make sure that those Black artists have platforms. Ron with Purple Lemonade, David Rue, Randy Ford, like, we all have been bringing in Black artists to really uplift their voices. And I think if we have the power and the privilege and the platform, we need to continue to do that. The other thing that I want to say with that is that if you are part of a white organization or institution, instead of having Black and brown artists come talk to you, go to where they're at, support where they're at. Stop having them support your institution. And that support can look like, oh, if you are having conversations in South Seattle, then we're going to tell our people to go there, be quiet, and give y'all money to make sure that happens. If you are supporting an online something, we're going to ask you how much money you need so that you can pay the artist. And we're not going to be invested. We're not going to attach our name to it. We're not going to attach anything to it. We're going to be a silent partner with no opinion whatsoever, because we know and understand that. That's the one thing that I wanted to say about that. Also, what does it mean for you all to see people like you in the audience? I remember going to the Nutcracker when Sumry was Clara. That's my baby right there, and going to support Amanda. But then again, we are having seats way in the back. So everyone that they see, white people, and maybe the one random brown Black person is in the front row. I know David and Randy was in the front row for the Nutcracker when Sumry was there. But What does that mean for you all? Because it's power in looking in the audience and seeing people that look like you. There's a different energy. And I say that to arts organizations. Again, you cater to a lot of your audience members are older white people with these subscriptions that sit in the front row, that give artists no type of energy, that feel entitled. And so how do we flip that? How do we make sure that our people, because we know tickets are overpriced, we know accessibility is really hard. If theaters open up again, and if we deal with theaters again as artists, how do we make sure people, and I don't mean just Black and brown people, queer people, trans people, disabled people, how do we make sure we are getting those tickets and not being shut out of that? Anybody want to answer? I'm removing myself.
I think you did it amazing with Black Boys. Like I can say that I have the pleasure of performing the second iteration of Black Boys, and in my whole dance career, I felt it's always so often has been like all white audience members, and I feel drained out for days. Like I just feel depleted because all my energy kind of got sucked out of me by this abyss of the proscenium, and also the gaze that is kind of piercing through me almost. So I think something that I felt during Black Boys at the Moore, where the tickets were overly sold out, not sold out, overly sold out. Like we could have sold out the whole weekend. And it's because what the work is, you know, it's the work brings in a community that has to see it, you know, that it's not that kind of vibration, that kind of, I imagine like if you throw a stone in the middle of a lake and then the rippling kind of, that happens when you bring artists that people recognize that they're doing the work that needs to be presented. So I think it's investing in the Danny Terrells of the world, you know, and the Amandas of the world, and the David Ruths, and the Naomi, and the Rons, and the Marquise, and the Randys. You know, these are the things that will kind of like create community and sustainably create community.
Yes to all of that. I mean, I think that seeing yourself on stage, I think, brings health and longevity to the art sector, because you're building a future of people that are inspired to do things that they might not have thought was possible had they not seen you. So I think that seeing yourself is building the next generation. And I think one way to piggyback what Marco just said, yes, support these people, and then don't support people that aren't doing that. So if you see a company that is all white, stop going to their shows and let them be as they may, and just let them, because the roots will run dry and you can show up with your dollar and not support, and actively say, if I get invited to something, sorry, I'm not going to go. Your company looks very white. Best of luck and goodbye.
I even think rethinking the idea of a sold out show, like that's even kind of what limiting and kind of capitalistic. And so how do we dismantle capitalism while trying to make a living off of our art moving now forward? Because again, capitalism is what is draining all of this monster on top of, you know, all the things that feed capitalism. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is, because I wanted to tour before everything happened, and now I'm trying to like rethink, how do I best tour in a way that is accessible? Because not everyone has internet, you know, not everyone, like even with this, like this is still inaccessible to a large number of folks. And so one of the things I'm kind of like having a hard time reconciling with is that, you know, or I'm not having a hard time, but you know, it's never going to be like an absolute, you know, like, oh, this is going to 100% do it. There's still going to be, you know, an amount of people that get underserved, you know? And so I'm just trying to figure out how to best how do I use my resources? And that's just my biggest question I'm having right now in my head as everything's happening. Because, you know, even again, like I wanted to, leave the classroom so that, my students can have more of an accessibility, can access me, outside of the classroom. And now I'm just like, wait, did I kind of just, and so just really I'm rethinking like how to, because my thing is like, we need to pour into the youth as well too. Like they're going to be running this thing when we can't. And so having them part of these conversations, like, and not being afraid of their answers, I think is also going to be something that is going to be very interesting, because we're going to have to start listening to them sooner or later. They're all we're going to have to start listening to them.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to add about resources is, it's like being able to really be in community is also just about asking each other, have you eaten today? Do you have childcare? Did you get groceries? Did you get to sleep last night? And not allowing the institutional agenda to dictate our relationships to where we can't actually be in community. I feel like everything that we're talking about in this time and what it's really allowed us to kind of deeply meditate on is like, how do we reimagine and really reimagine our relationships with each other, and how urgent that is. So I feel like folks like, Randy just was talking about how, she's doing this advocacy work, and really like just restructuring the whole thing, around advocacy. Like that's the work, that's really like the potential like that exists in this moment, like let's really not allow that institutional agenda to dictate our practices.
Hello.
Yes. I just wanted to highlight some of these comments. We won't get through everything. Just highlight some of these comments because we are coming to a close and to an end. As we highlight some of these comments, we can go with Dusty Collins. Maybe white art feels entitled to money. I'm just thinking here, back in the day, LGBTQ, color, and feminist art had to stay low and fringe because no money was given to turn up. It was a smaller community than Seattle. I think, believe it or not, we are still making art with no money. I'm not gonna brag, but I'm gonna brag. I did a whole fucking photo series with no money, but it was important for me for my own artistic practice. So yes, I agree with that statement, and I think we're still doing it. We still don't have an expectation of we're going to get all of this money to create art. Yeah, I just, that's part of it. Also, I just want to, as we wrap up, I would like for you all to have any final thoughts. And y'all know my favorite question, which people hate, but I love, is what is your joy? Because we cannot end this talking about this heavy stuff without uplifting some Black joy. So any final thoughts? And again, people, this is something that we are just scratching the surface on. My goal is just to have more of these conversations, highlighting more voices. Hopefully in July, August, we will have more people coming on. And these are people that I'm learning from. So please understand that I am learning from these folks. Y'all know me, I get emotional. I see how these people walk. I see how these people move. And they are just great human beings. Their hearts are great, their minds are great, their spirits are great, and they are passionate about people and loving people. So it is less about, yes, they are artists, and yes, we are talking about art, but these are just some really great people. And I am personally blessed that anytime that I say something, folks are saying yes. And sometimes I think that I ask folks too much, but I'm also like, these are important things to me, and I hear what people are saying. And sometimes we don't just get to talk about it without the white gaze chiming in, or people of color that are upholding anti-Blackness, they're chiming in. I just want to create spaces where we are able to talk about the things that we want to talk about without folks chiming in and giving their opinions that are mis-centered, off-kilter, wrong. So anyway, I appreciate you all. I deeply love you all. Thank you. Again, we will have more conversations, but any final thoughts? Everybody has to say what their joy is. You don't have to necessarily give final thoughts, but we have to just go out on what is your joy. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. My joy really in this time has been, seeing the community of Black people that are in Seattle. Being in PNB, I was never able to even discover the beautiful Black people in Seattle. So this time has been great. I got to meet David, working in telemarketing for PNB, and that was like really one of the only Black people I got to meet in this time. And then I've worked with Danny and Randy and Marco on other occasions, but it's so nice to, see that there is a community and that everyone is very much supportive of each other. So that is really my joy, and just seeing all of you has really made my day much better today.
My final thoughts are just thank you so much, Danny, for having me be a part of this. It's always a pleasure whenever we get to interact with you and with everyone on this. I don't know if you call this a panel, but everyone, it's so great to see you. Right now, my joy is being home. I'm in Minnesota. So my joy is being with family, being with my friends, eating Liberian food, watching Family Feud with my mom. That's my joy.
I'll go. Okay, go first.
Go ahead, Miss Naomi.
Okay. Yeah, Danny, I'm so grateful to you for inviting me into this conversation. It's just super wonderful and joyous in itself. So I've definitely found a lot of joy in this conversation. And, I feel like just in general, my joy is about feeling the infinite possibilities of friendship.
My joy is bittersweet. I am moving back home to LA this Thursday. So my joy is the excitement and anticipation of being back home with my family and being around, just being at home. I'm going to miss all of you, and I'm going to miss Seattle a little bit, but there's some things that are taking place for the better that have resulted in me having to make that change and go back home to LA. So I'm really happy about that. Right, I know. I didn't tell nobody.
My joy's been
bad about
it.
You can go, Marquis.
Lovely to see all of y'all. Okay. Yeah, it's lovely to see all of you. My joy is being found in just being able to be centered and calm and seeing y'all looking so collected as well today. And ask for anything more than that. More of these conversations, please.
My joy is in reading a lot of books and taking a lot of naps. And being around great people, actually. That's maybe top.
One of my, I guess, final thoughts is thinking about how to sit through conflict and uncomfortable times, and how to maybe work with my uncomfortability in a way and not try and too much hide from it. And so, yeah, I'm going to be working on that personally. And my joy is these conversations, seeing online spaces like this, seeing, all of us just do our thing. That's my joy. I like seeing my community do their thing. And so keep at it, y'all. Keep at it. Thank you, Danny. I see you. Had to close out Gemini season I see you. It's okay. It's all right. But no, thank you so much for putting this together.
Ron, your presence here in Seattle will be truly missed. And you gonna tell it like this. I was just
right?
ready. Like, it could have been like in a private message or something. It was just like, bye, girl. Thank you.
I'm so bad with goodbyes, and I was gonna be too sad to like tell everybody. So I'm like, all right, we just gonna rip the Band-Aid off and do it.
Dang, talk about the shade of it all. We just gonna do it right now. Again, I thank you all. I do this because the ancestors are telling me what to do. Period. That is what I get my joy in. I was talking to our team this morning from CD Forum, and I literally will be like, okay, so it's Monday and we're going to do this thing on Friday. And they say yes. And so for me, it is moving with spirit. I was afraid of that for a really long time. I was afraid to like just do the thing. But I realized when I move in spirit, these things happen. This was a very beautiful start of a conversation. There was a lot of things that you all gave me to think about, and I hope other people think about. And again, I am not, everybody can do this. Call up your friend, call up your friend's friend, and y'all have these conversations. And also stop inviting Black and brown people to have these conversations with you. There's nothing more that we can do. If you want the change to happen, you need to talk amongst your friends to make it happen. Because when you invite us in these conversations, you actually don't want to hear what we're having to say. You want to be taught something, and you can actually teach yourselves because you know the answers. You already know the answers. You already know what you should be doing. Don't be afraid of your voice. Don't be afraid to stand in front of Black and brown people in these conversations. Why do we have to continue to do the work? So just stop inviting us to the table and do it yourself. And then succeed or fail, and then maybe invite us to the conversation. Don't succeed and fail on our backs. Like, succeed and fail on your own back. So
when you invite us to the conversation, have your checkbook ready, please.
Dollar signs.
And please, I hope
on
you
that
are
note,
giving these money artists. The artists, the money that is being raised through myself will go to these artists into the next conversation. I thank you all that are donating money. I really believe in paying artists. So whatever you give me will not be going in my pocket. It is for the artists because they're taking time out of their day to say yes to me. So I thank you all. But also pay the artists.
Can I add one last thing? Sorry.
Yeah.
We also have to make sure that, and I'm talking most likely to the white Latinos, but this is really for POC and Black people that practice white supremacy. You have to also do the work. You know, these conversations, you know, this is also for you. You are a white supremacist, you know, and you should heal from that. We all are. I mean, you know, that shit is taught to us in school. That shit, you know, we carry that, we develop on it until we realize that it's like, oh shit, I have a lot of work to do. So realizing that we all have a lot of work to do is the first step. And then, you know, this is a white supremacist issue created by white people. So, you know, that takes, that's all I have to say, sorry.
Yeah. All right, everybody, you have a great evening. Look out for the next conversation, which will be happening sometime after I get a break. And look up what these artists are doing as far as how you can support them. Do not ask them to do anything. A lot of them are taking a break on purpose, but if you still want to support them for future endeavors or just to make sure they ate and sleeping or they have clean clothes, whatever they need, please make sure you look up those artists and give them money. Thank you all so much and have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day.
thank you.